you are going somewhere else, you have about 5 minutes before this one starts. I also wanted to ask that, if possible, that we could sit closer to the front, if we could move forward for those who are going to be participating in this conversation. And one other little seating request I'm going to make. If you are assigned to this hearing, which you would know by having a number 1 in the corner of your name tag, that means that you can be present here and you have a vote. And so I'm going to ask that you would sit on this side. If you are here because you want to be part of the conversation, you have an idea or a question you want to share, that's fantastic. And I'm going to ask that you sit on that side, just for the cause of when it comes time to vote, it makes it a little easier for us to count the vote if we have all the voters sitting in one area. So again, we'll start in just under 5 minutes. If you could sit a little bit closer to the front, that would be great. And if those who are assigned to this hearing could sit on this side, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much.
want to welcome you all to the Living Wage Resolution discussion hearing. Brandon, our host, has already asked, and I will repeat, the official voters of this resolution in this hearing are the people who have a number 1 on their name tag. If you have a number 1, you have been randomly assigned to be one of the people to cover this particular hearing. If you have a number 1, I would invite you to sit on this side of the sanctuary. If you are not a person with a number 1 on your name tag, you have another number, don't have a name tag, you're not, I'd ask you to sit on that side. People who are here who are not officially assigned to this, we are happy you're here and we welcome you as part of the discussion. But when it comes to the actual vote, it's only the people who have been assigned this hearing whose vote will count. Let me just go over a little bit of the ground rules. Something?
Mr. Moderator, John Eisenhower, Eagle Harbor Congregational Church. Point of personal privilege, I'm running the board, but I am a number 1. I'll be voting from over here, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
One exception.
2 exceptions. 3 exceptions. We're all part of that.
It's looking more like a revolution. Okay.
We could move all this over there.
It's okay. We're glad you're there. Okay, so apart from the people who have just been granted special access, those with 1s over here, those without 1s over there, let me just tell you the ground rules of this sort of hearing. First of all, one of the things you should know is never have somebody like me be the moderator, because I'm the worst when it comes to parliamentary procedure. But I will do my best to keep us online and moving forward in a positive manner. The process of this living wage resolution is to discuss this resolution and then to offer suggestions for alterations. The only place that we really impact an alteration to this resolution is in the therefore be it resolved section. All the whereases, all the biblical stuff, that's outside of our purview. We are dealing with the therefore let it be resolved section of this resolution. We have the power to impact that if we want. And then we will take a general vote of those who have number 1s on their name tags. We'll take a general vote to see whether or not we want to pass this resolution with a recommendation to pass on to the plenary, or if we want to hand this resolution with a recommendation not to pass to the plenary. Are we clear? Any questions? Thank God. Okay, before we start, I know you all have been handed a copy of the resolution, but just so we have a good running start together, I'm going to ask Jen, who is a primary author of this resolution, to come forward and read it to you.
Alrighty. Living wage resolution, a resolution of witness. Summary. This living wage resolution is based on the belief that every person or family should be able to be financially self-sufficient and to modestly participate in the fullness of life that God envisions for all people. This is based on the biblical and theological rationale laid out in these 3 verses from Acts. Acts 11, you want me to read all this, right? Okay. Acts 11:29 through 30. The disciples determined that according to their ability, each would send relief to the believers living in Judah. This they did, sending it to the elders by Barnabas. Acts 2:44 through 45. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Acts 4:32 through 35. Now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. With great power the apostles gave their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as owned land or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold. They laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need. As Christian brothers and sisters, we are called to have a different relationship with our money than our capitalist society dictates. These verses in Acts demonstrate the way that the early church set this example by everyone giving what they could and giving to those who were most in need. They ensured that everyone had enough. This individual accountability to each other is based on the belief that we are all children of God, deserving of justice and capable of acting justly. Economic fairness at the systemic level is built into the ethics of our faith tradition as well. In Hebrew tradition, debts were forgiven and slaves were set free every 7 years, Deuteronomy 15. In the year of Jubilee, which came every 50 years, all the land was equitably redistributed. This radical restructuring of a society prevents against the accumulation of enormous wealth based on the understanding that the land and the people ultimately belong to God. The resolution. Whereas economic inequality in the United States is the highest it has been in decades and is degrading the health, democracy, and economic prosperity of our nation, and whereas wages in the United States have not kept pace with rates of productivity or inflation, decreasing the ability of individuals or families to be able to buy the basic essentials, and whereas workers in low-wage jobs are disproportionately women and people of color, thereby exacerbating bias these minority communities already face, and whereas we see the way that congregations are working tirelessly to fill this ever-growing gap between what people need to survive and what they are able to provide for themselves, even while working, and whereas our Christian teachings call us to look towards the systems that drive people into homelessness and poverty, in addition to meeting urgent need. And whereas the concept of a living wage is more than a specific dollar amount, it also includes affordable access to basic human necessities that strengthen households and families. And whereas the Church Council of Greater Seattle has created a set of living wage principles which address the injustice of poverty-level wages and are part of a foundation for dynamic, healthy, and prosperous communities. Whereas the living wage principles of the Church Council of Greater Seattle state that a worker should be able to wake up in a safe, affordable home, cook a healthful meal without worrying about where the next meal is coming from, access to efficient transit options, including public transit, take their children to a quality daycare or school, go to a job where they are respected, safe, and valued, enjoy good working conditions and have a voice on the job, including the right to organize, visit the doctor without worrying about how to pay for it, have adequate time to spend with family, rest for renewal, and participate in community life. And finally, therefore, let it be resolved that the Pacific Northwest Conference of the United Church of Christ, 1, educate ourselves about issues of living wages and economic inequality in the local church setting. 2, engage in the issues by listening to workers and walking with them towards a living wage future in our communities. 3, advocate for the creation of living wage opportunities with elected representatives and business leaders. 4, call on each of the local churches to consider supporting the Church Council of Greater Seattle's living wage principles. And 5, report back to annual meeting 2015 as to the progress of this resolution throughout the year. Thank you all very much.
Okay, just to repeat, if you've got a 1 on your name tag, you're on this side. If you don't, you're on that side. The conversation is open, though, about the therefore let it be resolved. I open the floor. Please state your name, congregation.
Hi, Bill Curlin, Hackett University Congregational. Thank you for this resolution. I would just hope that we would add, is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay, that we would add as another goal for next year, since so many who would be affected are persons of either other faiths or no faiths, immigrants, and others, that we would aim to widen this perspective, which issues now out of our Christian background. I fully accept and embrace that. But that as we look at, as a resolve, that we find a way of using language that includes those many other congregations of other faiths and persons who then would be affected similarly, especially in light of just hearing Paul Benz talk about FAN being interfaith. I'm also part of an interfaith, but at a probably different level than some of this would address. So I just would encourage that. I don't have wording to that effect, but some goal that would maybe by next year would find a way to make that more inclusive, because I read it and it seems a little exclusive to me.
Bill, we would really need wording to meet
Well, maybe before this session. So I can...
Okay, yeah, give us the wording and then we can talk. Others? You better write fast, Bill. Yes. Can you come forward?
I too would commend the authors and the careful crafting of this and the interfaith portion of it. It calls for support of the Council of Churches principles, and my copy doesn't have those principles laid out, and I'm just wondering if someone could articulate those for us.
Yes, Jen read those as the last whereas. Oh yeah, okay. Any others?
Shannon Thomas, Alki UCC. Strong support of what we're asking to do here. I hope we are resolved to follow through with this. I think the living wage principles from the Church Council of Greater Seattle are a fantastic blueprint for what a kingdom of God economy could look like. I encourage, when we say educate ourselves, that involves a wide variety of activities and engagements, not only with the working classes, the persons that are called workers here, but also those that are homeless, those that are caught up in the criminal justice system, that are incarcerated, because much of that population, that very high-risk, high-need population who aren't part of the working class, part of that dispossessed population, that much of the brunt of our dominant economic system lands on them. And what I hear, much of what we're talking about here is confronting and changing that dominant system. So I hope we find language that moves beyond just the worker and talks about particularly that dispossessed, high-risk, high-needs population.
Are you suggesting that as an amendment to the therefore be it resolved?
I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm just bringing that aloud. Perhaps, as Bill was saying, we could find language along the way.
If you can give us language, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
We're probably too big of a body to construct. We're much better at alterations in a minimal way. Any others? Yes, please.
Cora Trujillo, Prospect United Church of Christ. I really like this. I just want to be really clear. This is a kind of a question. So we're not stating supporting a specific ballot initiative, you know, like the $15 an hour minimum wage in Seattle, and recently the vote for to cut bus service in Seattle. So we're not talking about any specific ballot initiatives with this. Is that correct?
I'll let Jen answer.
So the short answer is yes, you are correct. Do we need, should I say more than that, or?
That's okay.
Go with yes.
Hang on, we got Katie up, and then we'll go to you.
Katie Lloyd, welcome, Table Christian Disciples of Christ. And I too I really like and appreciate this resolution. In my congregation, we also have folks who work in the restaurant industry, and I'm aware of the debate going on around us around the $15 issue, because that's what's being talked about in the media and everywhere, of the debate back and forth of there are several folks in the restaurant industry who are opposing a minimum wage increase, and I recognize that that's not what this is specifically talking about, but in terms of going to our congregations and talking about living wage in the environment that we're in, at least in Seattle right now, and in the nation, because the president has talked about this as well, how do we engage folks who are afraid for the jobs they do have that could be impacted negatively were something like this as we move toward a more just and equitable system? As I said, I'm on board with this, but I also think there's fear in the air and, scrambling for folks who do work hard and are afraid of losing the jobs they have.
Okay, we have this gentleman, and then you, and then.
If you would like to speak, simply queue up at the microphone.
Oh, that's a great idea. Thanks, John.
Okay, Bruce Edwards, Congregational Church on Mercer Island, and I'd just like to ask, what is the Church Council of Greater Seattle? I'm afraid I don't know what that refers to.
Jen, you want to respond?
So the Church Council of Greater Seattle is an organization that brings together, man, it's been a little while since I gave the spiel, brings together a variety of congregations. I think they're at like 500 or so congregations that are a part, 320 congregations in the greater Seattle area, and last year they developed these living wage principles as a part of the social justice work that they do. A lot of their focus is on bringing together congregations in relationship with each other as a place for us to educate each other about what different congregations are facing and how they're finding those solutions, and to act as a resource and support on those issues. So this is, living wage is one of the social justice issues that they're currently working on. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Beth Amsbury, University Congregational, and I'm also on the staff at the Church Council of Greater Seattle. Part of what I like about the way this has been drafted is that it does give us flexibility for each community to discern how can they serve the community that they're with, while it affirms the values of moving towards living wage. So particularly to your question, item number 2, listening to workers and walking with them towards a living wage future. It allows, if your community has a particular set of needs, for you to listen to and be responsive and loving to them, while affirming, as Christians, we are called to move towards a certain goal. So I think it gives us strong justice grounding along with compassionate moving forward. So I like very much the way this has been drafted now.
I'm Janelle Anderson from the Community for Interfaith Celebration in Olympia. And I support this resolution, of course, but I was wondering, and some people have voiced this, whether it's comprehensive or balanced enough to enable every community to look at the unique situations they have. Concern about loss of job completely, or not all employers are small or big. There's a mix. So some employers are very, very small, and they employ a lot of people for a small community, and they're not run by corporations that have their headquarters in New York City. So I'm not, in this, maybe this is all about Seattle. I live in a smaller community, and so I was looking for some words like comprehensive and balanced. Advocating for a living wage and expansion of employment or something. Anyway, I just want to say that I love this resolution, but I think it, and I haven't gotten exact words to add, but I just think it needs to be a little broader and more recognition that living wages are not the only thing about employment that make a difference in a community or to a family. Having a job, having a community is important. And I think employers and workers, I mean, I for certain would include this word, listening and engage in issues by listening to workers and employers. That would be an amendment I would suggest, and walking with them, both the employer and the worker, towards a living wage or more employment or more job expansion. Thank you.
I'm Anna Marie Walsh from Westminster UCC in Spokane. My question, and I fully support this resolution, but my question is, how do we work with employers? Because every time we get an increase in minimum wage, rather than taking a cut in their profits, they cut jobs. Where is the balance here that this doesn't happen? I don't know what kind of wording to put into that, but it's something that we need to look at.
Thank you. Okay, go. Please come on up.
Hi, Andy Castro-Lang from Westminster Congregational UCC in Spokane as well. Would it be acceptable to the people who crafted this to insert one word in the second sentence under therefore let it be resolved? We would add the word in the second sentence, engage in the issues by listening to workers and employers, walking with them towards a living wage future in our communities. It's been brought up now by a couple of folks, and I am suggesting the one word.
Two words, and.
And, sorry. No, the and's already in there.
You need another one, though.
Workers and employers walking, no,
okay.
Just one
Just
word.
One. All right, you're right.
So, yes.
So that's made as a friendly amendment.
Very friendly.
And then, Jen, do you want to speak to whether that's acceptable to you?
Yes, I accept the very friendly amendment, and I appreciate how it focuses on the church's ability to be that bridge between workers and employers in moving towards this kingdom vision that we have as people of faith.
Okay.
I don't know if the rest.
Got that. What? Sure. Can we get this one?
Is this mic working? Oh, good.
Don is our scribe.
Don Bell, Plymouth Church scribe. I'm not supposed to talk, but I'll take off that hat. I know that there have been 2 or 3 people who have expressed the worry about losing jobs as a result of helping to bring the wages of workers up. And there's a lot of research that has been done already about that. It is not a question that doesn't have an answer. And the answer up till now is always partial, because it's based upon those cities in the United States where a higher minimum wage has been adopted. In those, I think it's fair, hopefully not to overgeneralize, that in those cases there is very little evidence to suggest that raising the minimum wage has an impact upon jobs. But I realize that is a question that is asked over and over again. Particularizing the answer for that in your own community is important as part of this discussion. The other thing I wanted to say is I would caution against us trying to make this one resolution so universal that it tries to tackle an issue that is beyond just living wages. The inequality in our country is a very complicated set of issues. The living wage alone will not solve it, but that's our focus.
Thanks. Hang on just a second, John. Yes, sir. Come forward. He's had his hand up for a while.
Hello, I'm Dan Martinelli from Wayside UCC in Federal Way, and I'm a longshoreman also, so I have a, I've seen this before. We don't need to have a dialogue with the employers. We already know where they stand. There's been several studies that have been made over the years about raising the minimum wage. And in those studies, it's shown that more people end up working. The jobs are created, not only because people have more money to spend, but it becomes affordable to go to work. If you're, a single mother or whatnot, the price of child care is so incredibly high that at $9.22 an hour, which is our state minimum wage, which is higher than the federal minimum wage, there's no way that you could possibly pay for your $10 an hour, $15 an hour child care. It doesn't make work pay. When I started working in 1976, the minimum wage at that point was $2.35, and by the time I was 18, it was nearly $3 an hour. Now we're talking, well, a long time. And, to keep up with inflation hasn't even come close. I mean, not even near. Now, I'm speaking for this resolution as it stands, because the more that you put in this, the more that you say, other than what we've said already, is just locking yourselves in. So that's what I've got to say at this point, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, what's that? Oh, thank you. I'm Matt Wagner. I'm actually a member of St. Paul United Church of Christ in Lebanon, Illinois, but I do work for United Church Funds. I'm here with Voice But No Vote. Thank you very much for your hospitality. I wanted to briefly say that we work with about 24 churches here in the Pacific Northwest Conference, including the Pacific Northwest Conference itself. And we are a socially responsible investment organization. I'm not here to give myself a plug, but what I am here to do is to point you to some resources regarding the working with the employer piece and those questions. I would urge you to visit an organization called the Interfaith Center for Corporate Responsibility, of which we are a leading member, which advocates for many issues, this being one of the largest on our ESG, or environmental, social, and governance issues, as it relates to social issues. ICCR.org, or you can go to our website at ucfunds.org and find a wealth of information and research and reports on how a living wage in various communities has impacted employers, has impacted workers, and has impacted the community as a whole. So I thank you for your time and good work on this piece. Thank you.
We're going to have John and then Sally, and then we're going to pause and wait. John's before you, Sally. Have John and then Sally, and then we've got a written. Bill gave us a written copy of his submission, so we want to cover that too. So John first, then Sally, then we'll do Bill's alteration.
John Eisenhower, Eagle Harbor Congregational UCC, but further qualify when I'm doing my day job. I am one of those evil entrepreneurs. In 2003, had the fastest growing business in the state of Washington. 2004, made number 46 on the Inc. 500. 2005, sold the company to 3M Corporation. And I have always run businesses that run on a quadruple bottom line. I have spent 6.5 years as chair of the board of the Bainbridge Graduate Institute, which gives MBAs in sustainable business to reinforce some of what you've heard. The socially responsible investment community, meaning you care about how you earn your money, not just about how you spend it. And the bottom lines we're talking about, yes, it's important to be financially profitable because it's hard to run in this society if you aren't. but we use the word profit around environment, around social, and for us, the notion of purpose or the spirit of the business itself. Why do you show up is important. And I want to report to you that following those quadruple bottom lines through business, not only were we outrageously profitable and the fastest growing business in the state of Washington, but had salaries in the top 90th percentile, 95th and above in business. It is possible to do this. More to the point, companies like Patagonia, who you may know, adopted principles like this, thinking that we are willing to spend 15% of our profits on this good cause, and we're surprised to learn that when you behave socially responsible, environmentally responsible, packaging gets smaller, it gets less expensive. So all of a sudden they had 20% extra profits. Bonterra Wine, Good Earth Wines, another example of a company that has field workers, migrant workers, upped their living standards, provided daycare, did all these things. They were willing to donate 20% of their profits. Lo and behold, the grapes tasted better and the wine sells for more. Because I believe that spirit half of that, when you actually pour it into your business, you can literally taste it. It comes out in a slow cooking that is good business, and this is a new thing to learn. If you're limited by a single bottom line, it costs you in ways you can't measure. It costs you dramatically in ways you can't measure. Your employees are not as satisfied because that's where their focus is too. Your product is not as good. Your support is not as good. Your customers are not as happy. It's a new thing to learn, but I will tell you the world is learning it. There's over $1 trillion in the SRI community now. If your funds aren't invested in socially responsible investment, I am glad to introduce you to some of those. If you'd like to learn more, I'm also glad to introduce you to a number of people here in Seattle who are focused on this full-time, what we do. Thanks very much.
Okay. Sally, and then Paul, if you could wait, we'll introduce Bill's resolution. Oh, thank you.
Sally Balmer, Guaymas Island Community Church. Number one, I am very much in favor of this, and I do want to add the "and employer" piece. Here is why. When you're a community church or the church, you have people coming from all different areas, and I think some of us want to be able, and maybe Jen, you can help supply information, things even like what John is sharing, to help us understand. I really love how you use the word "be a bridge." So that's the most important thing. I had a second thought about this, but you are saved because I have totally forgotten. I was all enwrapped with what John said. So if it's possible, though, to keep that in there, and if there's any way we could get some kind of resources so that we can have real conversation like Christina was talking about during our how we can converse with different kinds of people so it doesn't become the us-them kind of piece. Oh, here is what I was going to say. I do know people who run very small businesses like coffee house or whatever, and where an owner said to me she always wanted to do this, this is what she does. She really tries to help work with her workers, and then every once in a while she will say, and this month I got to pay myself a very small bit of income because she always wanted to pay her workers. So I would love to know how people like that, you know, deal with things like living wage. And I just don't even know who to go to. And I'd love to be able to, if you preach about this or talk about this, to say, here are some of the many perspectives, and here is why we are in support. So somehow we could get some info. Thank you.
This is a good lesson for Jen. She thought she was just writing a resolution and handing it off to somebody, and now she's had to stand up and defend it. Now she's having there, and now she's giving a new assignment. So that's great. But first, let's get to Bill's proposed friendly amendment bill. Yeah. No, I'm talking to Bill behind you. Sure. Okay. So this is Bill's friendly amendment. Reach out through FAN and other appropriate networks toward the inclusion and, if necessary, amendment of our efforts to be fully inclusive with interfaith partner congregations. Yes? Oh, this is in the, I would assume, number 6 of the Therefore Be It Resolved. Thank you for keeping me straight. Where was it? Amendment of our efforts to be fully inclusive with interfaith partner congregations of non-Christian traditions and inclusive of all workers.
Yeah, that may be redundant.
Okay, so should we?
I think it might be better to follow number 5 and move number 5 to be number 6.
Okay.
That is an activity. I'm sorry, I didn't include that.
The wonders of technology. Okay, so this will, we'll call this friendly amendment number 5, moving 5 down to 6. Certainly. Here we go. Reach out through FAN and other appropriate networks toward the inclusion and, if necessary, amendment of our efforts to be fully inclusive with interfaith partner congregations of non-Christian traditions.
So I'm not exactly sure. Do I have to say yes or no at this point, or can that be something that's opened for discussion?
You can have no opinion, and we can open it up. If you say yes, we move on. If you don't, we take a vote.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing in that bill is wanting to make it inclusive past Christian communities. And I know that our local church settings are mentioned in the first one as a way to make sure that we're educating ourselves before we're going out and preaching to everyone else about exactly how and what they should be doing in their lives and in their businesses. And so I think I'm not seeing the exclusivity in the rest of the therefore let it be resolved. And so, but I wrote it. So I would love to hear from you all how that's being heard and whether that spirit is being captured. So that's kind of what I'd like to hear.
Okay. So do you want Bill to respond to that?
I would love
A very simple response would be, when I look at the category of all workers, I think we would be excluding some who are practicing in faith traditions other than our Christian settings. So as we listen to workers, we're going to hear immigrant stories and many other stories, and we may not have a way to embrace their community, which I think is important to where we're heading.
Okay. So this was not accepted as a friendly amendment, so that means it's up to you. This has been put forth as an amendment, and I would need to hear a second. How's that for parliamentary procedure? We heard a second. Okay. Moved and seconded. We open the floor for discussion. Brief discussion. Let's take only a minute of response, folks, because we've got we're running out of time. Discussion? And please say if you're speaking for or against the amendment.
I'm speaking against the motion. I think it just boxes us in, and there's a lot of different organizations that are moving forward with this. We don't actually disclude anybody with the wording that there is standing right now, and so I don't much. I'm voting against it.
Great, thank you. Andy, you had something?
I need to look at it while I talk to you. So I'm just thinking that we could tighten it up a tiny bit with interfaith congregations, not necessarily partners until we build them. We wouldn't know that. And interfaith assumes non-Christian. So can we get that out of there? Does that make sense to you?
Suggested as friendly amendment. Bill's okay with that. So what are we taking out again?
Okay. So interfaith, not interfaith, but the word partners. Interfaith congregations, period. Because you don't need the of non-Christian tradition.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you read it?
So I'm going to reread it. It's up on the board for those who reach out through FAN and other appropriate networks toward the inclusion and, if necessary, amendment of our efforts to be fully inclusive with interfaith congregations. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. For those who have a number 1 on their name tag, it is now your time. Those who are in favor of including this as number 5 on the therefore let it be resolved, please raise your cards now. Would somebody help me count?
Yeah.
And keep them up.
Yeah, 18.
Okay. Those opposed?
Sorry.
Up again, everybody. Those, don't drop your cards yet. I got 19.
20.
Oh, 20. So it's been voted down. We're back to the original, therefore let it be resolved, with the inclusion of employers. Folks, we're coming at the end of our time. Is it time for us to decide whether or not to pass this on to, yeah. Called, the question is called. Praise be to God. Let us vote then on this resolution. Do we recommend that it be handed on to the plenary as so amended? Oh, yes? Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Okay. Are you ready to end debate? Raise your cards. Or you want to keep debating? Raise your cards. All right, good. Thank you, John. Now we go. So yeah, with teamwork, we can get through this. Okay, we now have the vote before us. Do we want to pass this on with a recommendation to pass to the plenary? If so, please raise your cards.
Okay.
Okay. Those opposed, please raise your cards. Thank you very much, folks. We are done.
Well done.
Thanks. Team effort.
Yes. So, 2 words after all that.
Yes. One word. One word.
Right.
Saul, my apologies.